In yesterday's episode, we successfully infiltrated the cathedral, where, either by brute force or subterfuge, we unlocked a hidden door that led underground to the very first vault Vault-Tec ever made, the Demonstration Vault. A vault with no number. Here the Master has made his lair. And inside, we interviewed mad scientists, only to discover another startling fact about the FEV. In addition to everything else it does, it has the potential to give people psychic abilities. In the bowels of the Demonstration Vault, we found psychers, poor human souls who had been granted psychic abilities by FEV at the cost of their own sanity. And we learned to our horror that the Master himself has become a psycher. His powerful psychic abilities were likely triggered by his initial dipping and subsequent frequent injections of FEV. We watched him destroy 3 captives with only his mind. In order to travel deeper into the Demonstration Vault, we had to find a device called a psychic nullifier. With this crown atop our head, we are protected from the Master's psychic thoughts. On floor 3 of the Demonstration Vault, as we move to the east, we see biomass beginning to cake the walls and floors, and we find it in high concentration against the far eastern wall. Here we find a door, and upon opening it, we enter the corridor of revulsion. If we don't have a psychic nullifier equipped, the Master's psychic attacks become more intense with every step. At first, the hairs on the back of our neck rise. We feel something from the corridor ahead. The bile rises as we recognize the mass of flesh ahead. Human parts in the wall itself. The worst part is that it is moving, calling to us. Our nose starts to bleed. We hear voices in our head. They are calling our name. Darkness rushes over our eyes for a moment, but we recover. Following the corridor, we begin to take damage. 5 points, then 10 points. A voice calls to us. We turn our head to see the image of a forgotten friend, obviously dead. The worms fall from her rotted jaw as our headache grows. It is getting harder to move forward. Our feet seem bonded to the floor. We look down and the flesh on the floor is crawling up our leg. Teeth gnaw at our knees. Still, our headache gets worse. Something catches our attention, a flash of movement from the ceiling, and then a sliver of bone pierces our eye. With it comes the thought of the dead and the tortured. The pain in our head is maddening. We feel the sins of others wash over our soul, and it gets worse as our sins answer them. Like madmen, they fight through our psyche, and in the process, tear our personality apart. In the distance, we see an opening in this hallway, but as we approach the chamber, our head pulses with the intrusive thoughts of others. The pain grows and grows, but suddenly, as if it never existed, the pain vanishes. We fall to the ground and weep, but something does not feel right. I think we can assume that as we neared the end of the corridor of revulsion, the Master decided to release us instead of kill us. If we survived the damage of the corridor, that is. Alternatively, if we have the psychic nullifier in our inventory, none of this happens, and we can walk down the corridor without taking any damage at all. At the end, we find a large room caked with human biomass. This was the Overseer's chamber of the Demonstration Vault, and in the Overseer's seat, which as we know is well equipped with 2 Gatling lasers, we find the vaguely human form of the Master.
So what shall it be? Do you join the Unity, or do you die here?
Join.
Die!
Join.
Die!
And he speaks with the voices of all the souls he's consumed over the decades. We see that the Master has entwined himself with the machinery of the Demonstration Vault, an ability we knew he had after reading his log in the Mariposa military base. He interlinked his mind with the computers there to download all their data. Here we see that he has done the same. Man and machine are one, but the Master is so much more than man now. He is a unity of flesh, a ball of plagued and mutated humanity, united together for one purpose and controlled by one mind. We have a few options here. We can give in or we can attack, but both of those options cut this conversation short. So to actually talk with the Master, we have to say, If you can prove to me that your unity is the best course for humanity, then I will help you.
I don't have to prove anything to you.
Prove.
Your ego demands you tell me. All villains have this strange urge to explain everything.
I am no villain.
You have no idea what I or
The unity.
is about.
You are a villain. You're just denying your inner feelings.
I don't have to prove myself to you. Using your logic, that must prove I am not a villain.
It would be a hopeless cause.
To explain it to you,
Look, I can't know if you truly represent the best future for humanity unless you prove it to me.
very demanding for one in your tenuous position. But I can
Respect.
your needs.
Then tell me what you're about.
The unity will bring about the master race,
Master.
Master!
one able to survive, or even
Thrive.
in the wasteland. As long as there are differences, we will
Tear ourselves apart!
fighting each other. We need one race,
Race.
Race!
one goal,
Goal!
Goal.
one people to move forward to our destiny. Destiny.
That race being mutants, of course.
Of course.
Mutants are best equipped to deal with the world today.
Who else?
The ghouls?
Please.
Normals?
They brought nuclear death to us all. This will be the age of mutants. Mutants.
You mean to change all the others into mutants as well?
All that.
Resist?
Yes. And all those that are required for the.
Unity.
As well. The remainder will be allowed to live out their days, but under unity.
Control.
And protection.
But none shall breed, for they will be the last of their race.
And what about those who oppose you?
They will be
Punished!
for their insolence.
You mean to kill them all?
Of course not. Most will be offered a chance to become a mutant.
Those who deny this.
Opportunity.
Will be sterilized and
Let go. Those that resist will be
executed.
You're such a bigot.
We are all biased, are we not? We each
care more.
about our individual communities than other people. We haven't changed. And I'll tell you something else.
What's that?
We won't change. Not unless we are of one people.
One.
One race.
One.
The unity will allow us to move beyond these petty concerns and deal with the major problems at hand. You do want to be a part of that, don't you?
Part.
Don't!
I just hope we don't end up looking like you.
Your humor will not
Save.
you now. Do you accept my offer or not?
Not!
Accept.
At this point, we can always accept. Master, I can't win. I'll join you.
Excellent. Your talents will be.
Useful.
But first, you must tell me everything about your vault.
Why?
I will conquer it and turn all those pure strain
Humans!
into mutants. They will give me the army I need to bring.
Peace to the entire wasteland.
If we say, that sounds reasonable, let's do it. The screen goes black, and we get the cutscenes where we're dipped in FEV, and the mutants invade Vault 13. Or we can resist the Master and say, oh, there will be death today, but not mine. I've got a plan.
Oh, please, what sort of plan might that be?
I've convinced the Brotherhood of Steel to invade this place if I was captured and not set free. They'll be here any moment.
You might be telling the
Truth.
It doesn't matter. But I will let you go for now.
And if we choose this option, we can walk away from the conversation. But to stop the Master, we have to come back and finish our confrontation. He seems to be under the impression that his master race of super mutants have the ability to go forth and multiply like the rest of the animal kingdom. But we know from our travels that that's not accurate. And we can use everything we've learned to prove it to him. We can start by saying, you know, you've got a problem with your master plan.
And what is that?
You can't possibly take on the entire world.
I'm not after the world yet. When I turn your fellow vault dwellers into
Mutants.
my forces will be too strong for any to stand against. But don't worry, you won't care.
Care.
That just leads to him turning hostile. But if we read the super mutant autopsy holotape that we got from head scribe Vree at Lost Hills, we find an option to say, I happen to know that your mutants are sterile.
Preposterous!
The FEV2 virus doesn't destroy the reproductive organs of those it mutates.
Now we have to understand the story we've learned well to be successful here. If we make any missteps, the Master becomes hostile. For example, if we say, well, maybe it's all that extra radiation, he says,
Radiation has no effect on us.
The FEV virus makes us immune.
Your argument is
Weak.
and so are you.
Or if we say, perhaps the virus didn't sterilize people once, but it does now, he says,
Do you have proof?
now if we still have Vree's autopsy report in our inventory, we can hand it over to him as evidence. We find an option to say, of course I do. Here it is. However, if we don't have it in our inventory, even if we downloaded the information to our Pip-Boy, this option fails.
This proves nothing. You will pay for your insolence.
Hey!
So instead, we can have the Master hunt for the proof that we know is there on his own by saying, have you talked to any of your mutants about this?
I believe I shall. Don't move. My scientists assure me that nothing is wrong. What do you say to that?
Say!
We again have two pitfalls. If we say, well, yeah, of course they would say that because they're afraid of you. You think they'll tell you the truth?
I think I know who the liar is.
Liar!
And he attacks. Or if we say, ask one of your lieutenants.
One moment. He cannot be reached. He must be dead. And I can guess who killed him.
Kill!
Whoops. Yeah, that was me. I'm not sure what happens if he's alive, but we recall from our interview with the lieutenant back at the Mariposa military base that he was aware that super mutants were sterile.
Presently, there is a slight problem in the reproductive process. It's being attended to. For now, we must use the vats to turn humans into super mutants.
So I'm guessing he tells this to the Master here, but of course with him dead he can't, which means our only option left is to say, have you thought to ask a female mutant?
Reasonable. One moment. Are you sure? What about the other?
Females.
Cannot be.
And with that, the Master realizes the truth. All his hopes and dreams for the future of humanity's master race are crushed with the realization that they can't reproduce. We can respond one of two ways. We can gloat by saying, excuse me while I gloat. Told ya!
You will pay for what you have done.
Hey!
Done. You think you can destroy me?
Destroy?
Me.
And with that, the Master attacks. Nothing awaits you but the fire. Fire! He attacks us with his twin Gatling lasers. If we're wearing the hardened suit of T-51B power armor, we're pretty well protected. It has high laser resist. But if we're wearing the Tesla armor that we got in the cathedral, we're well nigh invincible because it has even higher energy resist. But his Gatling lasers are not the only thing to worry about. He is flanked on either side by iBots. And during the battle, super mutants attack from the hallway behind us, one at a time. They seem to ignore companions that are in the hallway and focus all of their attention on the Vault Dweller. Since the Master's Gatling lasers are so powerful, and since our companions have no armor, it's almost guaranteed that he'll kill them unless we leave them on the floor above. But if we're well armored, and if we have something amazing like the turbo plasma rifle, eventually we land a decisive blow. And like the lieutenant before him, the Master has a beautiful, unique death animation. Now, we do have to kill any remaining mutants before moving on, but when done, we see that the death of the Master has triggered a self-destruct sequence inside the demonstration vault, and we now have to race out as fast as we can before the whole place blows. Alternatively, if we respond to the Master with humility and say, "I'm sorry, but your race is doomed."
But it cannot be. This would mean that
All my work.
has been for nothing. Everything that I've tried to...
A failure!
It can't be.
Well, maybe there's something that can be done. Perhaps you just need more test subjects.
Yes, more subjects. I think I shall start with you.
Do.
And he attacks. Or we can say, "Sorry, this isn't an option for you. Your race will die out after this generation."
I don't think that I can continue
Continue?
to have done the things I have done in the name of progress and healing. It was madness. I can see that now. Madness. There is no hope. Leave now. Leave while you still have
Hope.
And at the very end, we see a brief flicker of the humanity from the man who was once Richard Gray. The Master initiates self-destruct, and we now have 240 seconds to evacuate the vault. However, there is a third way to go about this. We can bypass the Master altogether if, instead of turning east at the end of the long hallway on the third floor, we turn west. Here we find a barracks filled with super mutants, whom we can walk past unscathed if wearing a Children of the Cathedral robe, or whom we can kill if we're not. We find a stealth boy in one of the lockers, and in the northwestern corner we find a door leading to another elevator. This elevator door is locked, but picking it, we find that it brings us to the 4th floor. The 4th floor is nuclear warhead storage. But why a demonstration vault was built with a facility for nuclear warhead storage, we may never know. Though it is possible that the Master brought these warheads here himself, perhaps to use as a weapon against the Brotherhood of Steel. The warhead is guarded by 2 super mutants, and inspecting it we learn that it is a nuclear warhead. It is described by the game as a bomb. This is a nuclear warhead. It is controlled by the computer attached by the cables. Following the cables we find a computer here, labeled Atomic Access Computer. It requires a very high science check to access the computer. Even at 85%, I kept getting messages saying, "You were not skilled enough to defeat the security mechanism." But thankfully, we found a big book of science inside the vault. After reading it, this brings our science skill up to 92%, which was just enough. We have armed the warhead. A timer with 4 minutes has started to count down. So this has the same effect as defeating the Master or talking him down through dialogue. No matter how we initiated the self-destruct sequence, we now have to book it as fast as we can. Heading through the 3rd floor, we can pick up our companions on the 2nd, and then head to the entrance to race out the door. Through the cave, through the basement, up the stairs, out the cathedral, and back to the world map. And then... Someday there will be a cult in the wasteland who would see such division as the ultimate goal of every man. But that cult is not this cult. And with the detonation of the warhead beneath the demonstration vault, the Master and the Children of the Cathedral are wiped from the wasteland forever. If we chose to destroy the Cathedral and the Master before destroying the Mariposa military base, we get the following ending.
You managed to destroy the vats. Then you killed the Master before he could realize his twisted plans. With the Master gone, his armies flee to the east in fear of retribution from the remaining normals.
And yes, those events are in the wrong order, even in the published game. But if instead we chose to destroy the Mariposa military base first, and then kill the Master, we get the following ending.
The death of the Master was the first major step towards ending his mad dream of conquest and enforced peace. But it is the destruction of the vats that neutralizes the mutant threat. Without the ability to create more mutants and enforce their harsh brand of justice, the mutant armies flee to the east, beyond the no man's land.
If we go to the necropolis and take their water chip, but don't fix their water pump, we get the following ending.
The ghouls of Necropolis learn firsthand the final meaning of dehydration as their city succumbs to the desert sands and the water runs out. Without their water-purifying control chip, they do not survive.
However, if we take their chip, but then fix their water pump, we get the following ending. And we know from the events of Fallout 2 that at least part of this ending is canon.
The ghouls of Necropolis learn how to maintain the repaired water pump, and eventually rediscover many lost secrets of engineering. They form a business, selling this technology to other towns.
However, if we don't make it to the necropolis until after 110 days have passed after we leave Vault 13, or if we kill all of the super mutants here, and then 30 days later we return to the necropolis, we get the following ending.
The mutant attack on Necropolis spares none of its ghoulish inhabitants. After the mutant armies advance, they leave a truly dead city behind them.
And we know from the Vault Dweller's memoirs and the events of Fallout 2 that this is the canonical ending for the necropolis. I think we can presume that the Vault Dweller did indeed fix the pump, and the ghouls were in the process of rediscovering much technology from the ruins of the necropolis when the Master's army rolled through and killed them all. Now, there were intended to be two endings for the followers of the apocalypse, but one of the endings was dependent upon how the player completes a quest that was eventually cut from the game. Since this quest is no longer in the game and we can't complete it, we can't unlock that ending, which means the only ending we can get in the game for the followers of the apocalypse is this one.
The mutant armies, led into battle by the fierce super mutants, destroy the followers of the apocalypse. Barely human carrion feeders pick over the followers' remains.
However, we learn from the events of Fallout New Vegas that the following ending, the good ending, is the canonical one, even though we can't actually get it while playing Fallout 1.
The followers of the apocalypse rise to become a major influence in New California. With your help, they gain control of the LA Boneyard.
If Tandy died, or we never rescued her from the raiders, and if her father Aradesh is still alive, Shady Sands gets the following ending.
Aradesh grieves for his slain daughter, Tandy, but eventually builds Shady Sands into a respected community, which is prosperous for many years before his untimely death at the hands of a desert raider.
If Aradesh is dead, but Tandy is still alive,
Tandy takes control of Shady Sands after the death of her father, Aradesh. Her brilliant, if headstrong, style of leadership makes Shady Sands a powerful force in the years to come.
If Aradesh is dead, and Tandy is either dead or still being held captive by the Khans,
with Aradesh dead and Tandy missing or killed, Shady Sands needs a new leader. After several elections, they find they cannot be governed by a single person and create a guiding council. Shortly afterwards, the raiders regroup and attack Shady Sands, burning the small community to the ground.
And if we don't destroy the Master and his army before 230 days have passed, Shady Sands gets the following ending. Remember, as we discussed in yesterday's episode, after patch 1.1, this ending is practically impossible to get.
The mutant army marches as far north as Shady Sands, razing the small town to the ground.
But if Aradesh is alive, and we rescued Tandy from the raiders, and she is still alive, Shady Sands gets the following ending, which, as established by the events of Fallout 2 and New Vegas, is the canonical one.
In Shady Sands, Tandy helps her father Aradesh bring a new community and new life out of the broken remains of the world. They are responsible for the new California Republic, whose ideals spread across the land.
If the Master and the Mariposa military base have not been destroyed after 210 days, Junktown gets the following ending.
The mutants are slowed, but not stopped by the brave defenders of Junktown. When the army finishes their brutal siege, nothing of Junktown remains.
If we either sided with Gizmo or simply left him alive in Junktown,
Junktown becomes the new boomtown under the careful and profitable guidance of Don Gizmo. He profits the most and continues to increase the size of his casino and the scope of his power until he chokes to death while eating some iguana on a stick.
but if instead we sided with Killian Darkwater and helped him kill the mob boss Gizmo, Junktown gets the following ending, and we learn from the events of Fallout New Vegas that this is the canonical ending.
Killian Darkwater takes firm control of Junktown, drives out the last of Gizmo's kind, and then enforces his own brand of frontier justice. Life is fair and safe under his law.
If for any reason Head Paladin Rhombus is killed, the Brotherhood of Steel get the following ending.
The Brotherhood of Steel, under new leadership after the death of Rhombus, becomes an overzealous techno-religious dictatorship. In 20 years, the Steel Plague devastates the newly formed New California Republic and starts a dark age that could last 1,000 years.
However, if Rhombus is left alive, the Brotherhood of Steel get the following ending, and we know from the events of all Fallout games after this one that this is the canonical ending.
The Brotherhood of Steel helps the other human outposts drive the mutant armies away with minimal loss of life on both sides of the conflict. The advanced technology of the Brotherhood is slowly reintroduced into New California with little disruption or chaos. The Brotherhood wisely remains out of the power structure and becomes a major research and development house.
Now, the good ending for the hub was also dependent upon completing a quest which was cut from the game, so no matter our choices in the game, we always get the following bad ending.
The hub disperses before the might of the mutant army and will never recover.
However, if we would have completed that quest which was cut from the game, we get the following ending, and we know from the events of Fallout 2, 3, and New Vegas that this ending is the canonical ending for the hub.
With your assistance, Old Harold brings the ghoul population of the hub into equality with the humans. The two sides work together and the hub prospers. Old Harold is still alive, as far as anyone knows.
Presumably this cut quest had something to do with anti-ghoul bigotry in the hub, which is reminiscent of a Fallout 3 quest involving a certain tower, and makes me sad that it was ultimately cut from the game. If we never discovered the Con Raiders, the Cons get the following ending.
The Desert Raiders pillage most of the northern parts of New California. They are a scourge that lasts for years, until a rebel army of mutants brings them down.
If we found the Cons and we even attacked them, but we didn't kill enough of them, then the Cons get the following ending.
The Desert Raiders eventually regroup and manage to terrorize small communities in the years following your adventures.
However, if we kill at least 13 raiders, or if we kill Garl and 8 raiders, the Cons get the following ending. And we know from the events of Fallout 2 and New Vegas that this is the canonical ending.
Thanks to your persistence, the Raiders are destroyed as an effective fighting force and disband. None of the Raider survivors are ever heard from again.
Though this ending is slightly incorrect, during the events of Fallout 2, we do indeed hear from at least one of the survivors. The near obliteration of the Cons did indeed happen, but since we find Cons in Fallout 2 and New Vegas, there was at least one survivor who allowed them to rebuild.
Your involvement with the various places and people of the wasteland is well documented by future historians. Only a single question remained unanswered. What happened to you?
You've done it. That's wonderful, amazing. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, what you've endured. There's no way the people of the Vault can ever thank you enough for what you've done. You've saved all our lives. Who knows? Maybe even saved the human race. That makes the rest of this even harder. Everyone will want to talk to you. Every youngster will look up to you and want to emulate you. And then what? They'll want to leave. What happens to the vault if we lose the best of a generation? What if we are the only safe place in the world? You just gave us back all these lives. I can't take the chance of losing them. I've made a lot of tough decisions since I took this position, but none of them harder than this one. You saved us, but you'll kill us. I'm sorry. You're a hero, and you have to leave.
What? After everything we've done for Vault 13, Jacorian banishes us? How could he? We can respond in one of two ways. If the betrayal is just too much for us, we can cut him down. Oh, and he's got a unique death animation. We see half of his body wriggling towards the door. Or if we just don't want to cause any more harm to Vault 13, we can let Jacorian walk away. And with that, the Vault Dweller walks off into the wasteland. If we chose to kill Jacorian,
You march into the desert sands, leaving the shattered corpse of the Overseer behind you, never to return to the vault.
But if we chose to leave him alive,
You march into the desert sands, leaving the vault behind you.
and now we understand why he was sounding so awkward when we talked with him after destroying the Mariposa military base. He knew that he was going to exile us even all the way back then, but he still needed us to kill the Master, and so he kept that information to himself. In Jacorian, I see a man who is terrified of everything outside the vault. I don't think he's a bad man. I do think he cares about his vault, and he's acting like an overprotective parent, trying to keep everyone safe. Plus, as the successor of the previous Overseer, he still has a mission to complete Vault-Tech's experiment for the Vault, which was to see what a population will do after 200 years of complete isolation. Perhaps he had that experiment in mind when making his decision to banish the Vault Dweller. But we learned during the events of Fallout 2 that despite this exile, Jacorian couldn't keep the Dwellers of Vault 13 from leaving the Vault. The things the Vault Dweller had achieved so inspired a younger generation that there was nothing Jacorian could do to keep them inside. In fact, the Vault Dweller becomes a somewhat mythic hero for the people of Vault 13. They revere him so much that when Jacorian banishes him, the residents see this as an unforgivable crime. They put Jacorian on trial and execute him for his betrayal. Because of this, we know the canonical ending of Fallout 1 is that we don't execute Jacorian after he exiles us into the wastes. But to learn what happened to the descendants of the Vault 13 Vault Dwellers, we have to wait until we go over the full story of Fallout 2. But this was the full story of Fallout 1. And I'm so glad I was able to sit down and go through the entire thing with you. Fallout was a revolutionary game at the time, and its story and setting and its unique combination of music, art, and story is so well done that it remains compelling even all these years later. It also has great replay value. With this series, I focused primarily on the story, but there are many things I couldn't cover here, including all of the hilarious dialogue options we get if we have a low intelligence character, not to mention all the other unique ways to build and play your character. If you'd like to take Fallout 1 for a spin yourself, I provide links in the description of this video where you can find a copy for your machine. Let me know your thoughts on Fallout 1 and this series in the comments section below. Thank you so much for sticking with me for nearly half a month as we went through this series. But never fear, we're not done. We still have so much lore to explore. Next week, we'll pick up doing Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 content as usual. And we'll get back to exploring other games. If you want to make sure you don't miss my next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. They also come in other products as well, smartphone cases, pillows, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week, bright and early, with more brand new videos.